What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck with you. Buck, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Not too much, DJ. Just really excited this time of year because it's so unusual to have college football still going. Normally, we talk about all-star games, but not a college football game. So to have the Natty coming up on top of a great weekend of football when you talk about the divisional round, doesn't get much better than this.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worlds converging at this point in time. Like trying to really get cranking on the college kids now. That bear jumped on my back, Buck. I don't know what happened. I turned around, that thing was just all over my back. So I got working on that stuff. Then with enjoying the playoffs, both the final game coming up on the college side as well as what's going on in the NFL. There's a lot of great football stuff going on. I want to take today's episode and we'll get to some newsy stuff and some coaching news and potential hires with the information we have as we're recording. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I want to talk about these 8 teams that are remaining in the playoffs. And I got this idea actually from Brock Heward the other day. And he asked this question, and I took some time to think about it because I was like, okay, let me give some thought to this. But he was wondering, what lesson can you take from the 8 teams that are left? Be it on the field, personnel department, team building, like any less. Is there anything you can learn from them that you could take with you if you were a general manager of a team? So I'm gonna rip through them. We'll go one by one. I'll give you mine, and then just what comes to mind for you. Like if there's anything different. And let's start with this. Let's start with the first thing for all 8. We're not even going to talk about quarterbacks because 7 of these 8 teams have quarterbacks who were first round picks. Like a talented quarterback, and the 8th is Jalen Hurts, who has a lot of ability and was a second rounder.
Yeah.
So we're going to assume to get into the party, you got to have one of those. So and having a great quarterback doesn't ensure you make it to the final 8, but it's hard to get into the final 8 if you don't have a great quarterback. I think that's a good premise to start from. You agree on that front?
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. Like that is definitely a great premise. You got to have the franchise quarterback, no matter how you get it. You have to have one to give yourself a chance because as we're seeing, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance in the tournament.
And on that point, and we'll get to the Philadelphia in a minute, but the one team who does not have a first round quarterback, I think we would be on this. We would say that they have the most talented roster supporting that quarterback. So that's just an interesting nugget there. But let's start with Detroit. And if I was going to think of a word with Detroit, I wrote down alignment. I don't know if there's a better organizational alignment in the NFL than what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell from the jump, Buck. They were on. They knew what they wanted and what they wanted that team to look like, and they went out and got it done.
Yeah, so it's kind of like one of the things that I believe when we talk about building a championship team is not discussed enough. How from top to bottom, everyone has to be aligned in terms of their vision for how the team is going to operate, what the team should look like, and all of those things. It doesn't mean that we don't have differing opinions on maybe players, but there is a universal belief in the type of team, the type of player from a football character trait standpoint that we must have on our team to be able to succeed. What you've seen in Detroit, and look, I'll give the owners a lot of credit for the patience they exhibited because they could have punted on this project after a year and a half when it didn't get off to a fast start. But they stayed true to who they were, and they've been rewarded on the other side. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, they get it because the general manager supplies the head coach with the type of players that fit how the coach wants to play. They are in lockstep with the football character part of the situation in terms of the grittiness, the competitiveness, the toughness, all of those things. It works. And DJ, I'll say this particularly, I don't know if you've been listening to some of the conversations that's been coming out from the losing teams, teams that didn't make it to the playoffs, but there's been a lot of conversation about a lack of accountability. We need this, and we don't have guys that care and all this other stuff. And to me, it speaks to a bigger problem that exists in the NFL. If you don't have everybody aligned, if your culture and your environment isn't right, you have no chance. And I think everyone is now pointing to the Lions as the city on the hill when it comes to creating culture and buy-in, making sure you get the right players that fit the image of the organization.
Yeah, I was just looking at the way that they've done things, and not only is it just kind of having that alignment and that fit, but it reminded me, and this is a little bit of a left turn here, of as we go into draft season, if you're a fan, right, and you have a team that you want, you know we need some players, think less about how people rank these guys. Like you're going to see a million. Everybody's got rankings and mock drafts, and you're going to look at that. No, don't pay attention to the number of where they're ranked. Pay attention to what's read. Like pay attention to what you read in terms of the description of the player, because fit has never been more important. And if you know, like when we talk about alignment and you kind of know what you're looking for, then you might say, okay, this guy is the fourth ranked whatever, but you know what, man, he reads the way he reads. That's the kind of player that we not like that's our type of guy. And that's why I honestly think our side of things is so much harder than working for a team. When I'm trying to stack these guys, you got to stack these guys.
Mhm.
We're not stacking for a scheme or personality or a fit.
No.
That's why to me, I just try this out. Trust me, just try it out for 1 year. Just read it. Just read the descriptions, and that'll inform you on whether or not he's a good player for your team.
100%. And you're right. We don't have the ability to kind of do the deep dive when it comes to the character, whether it's moral character or football character, to know if a guy's a perfect fit in certain situations. We may be trying to play matchmaker with mock drafts and those things. But what we can do is we can assess the talent. We can see how they play and we can project how they may play in the ideal system for what their talents show. But it's a very difficult thing. And for organizations, that's why it's really clear before you even start the rebuild process, you have to talk through what you want to be. You know, when you think about the teams that have been successful for a while, teams that are always competitive, may not win every year, but they're always in the hunt, there seems to be a clear compass for how they want to operate because they know who they are and they know which players fit what they want to do.
No doubt. And look, we spent a little extra time on Detroit. We don't have to go
Mhm.
as in depth on this one because some of this conversation we've had before on Washington. Washington, obviously, the home run, the coach, all that stuff
Same for
knocked it
me.
out of the park. But also we talked about the value of the vets. That's kind of what I wrote down in there. Is there's having guys who've been on championship level teams and been big in championship moments. Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, those types of players. Even Andrew Wiley's been on a Super Bowl team. I think
Mhm.
that's a great reminder from them that there's value in vets with championship experience.
Yeah, I would even go a step further. It's not only value in vets, but when you're the head coach, you need to bring some people with you. And it's very, very common whenever you have a new head coaching hire that he'll reach back in his past and pull some guys that he knows to
Yep.
help him create the culture that he wants. In Washington, he not only brought people that he knows that buy into the way that he wants to do things, but they also have championship experience and pedigree. And I don't
Mhm.
care what anyone says, man, that experience brings a level of expertise. I don't think it's a coincidence that they played the way that they played last weekend with Bobby Wagner installed as the Mike linebacker because they've done it time and time again. It's easier to tell the rest of the team or the young guys, here's what's about to happen when we get
Mhm.
to the postseason. The game becomes a little faster, a little more physical. And these things, here's how we need to prepare to be able to get it done. To me, that is very valuable. And the Commanders saw the value in that as they were trying to turn around the program.
Yeah, and I think especially around a young quarterback, Buck. I mean, just having all those different veteran pieces. Zach Ertz has caught a game winner in a Super Bowl.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, it's anyways. I think there's value there. Philly, and we talked about how deep and talented their roster is. I just wrote down like, can you think of a team that has kept their priorities in perspective more than Philly? Like it has been a line of scrimmage,
Hmm.
add talent every year for 20 years, Buck. That's all. I mean, it's like they've never veered. Like I just put down that they have always had the proper priorities, is what I put for Philly.
Yeah, keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing in Philly has been dominating the line of scrimmage. Doesn't matter what you have around you on the perimeter. If we can dominate the line of scrimmage, it always gives us a chance to win. And the Philadelphia Eagles have embraced that more than maybe anybody else in the National Football League by constantly pumping resources into the offensive and defensive lines. People will talk about, well, yeah, they got Devontae Smith in the first round. Yeah, but that's after the rest of the house had been built.
Yeah.
The foundation was right. Like you had all of the skeleton in place. And so now you can go out and do that. But if we go back and look, right after that, they went right back and got a line of scrimmage player because
Hmm.
that's what they do. They believe in that, and it's been very successful for them. And I think the funny thing is when you hear so many people talk about oh, we want to be a line of scrimmage team. Yeah, but your actions don't
They don't
match
match your
your
words.
words.
Yep.
So if you're going to be a team that is about the line of scrimmage, then everything that you do is about the line of scrimmage, and that's what the Philadelphia Eagles have done.
Yep. 100%. All right. This is an interesting one for the Rams. I love this as a almost like a slogan. I wrote down details and dogs. Like they are as detailed as it gets. Like just think about how they run routes and how crisp they are in their details. I think they're detailed in terms of their evaluation with Les Snead. They have traits that they covet and they want to go get. And then just look at their defensive front with all the dudes that they've added. Those are dogs. Like if you watched Jared Verse last year, you knew one thing. He will freaking jack you at the line of scrimmage. Like that is a animal. And that's kind of what they've cultivated. His teammate Jared Fisk is the same way. Kobe Turner, same way. Like those guys play, to the wall at all times.
And so that's the hardest thing to find, like, because everyone talks about like being competitive and that, oh, I love the game and this, but it's another way. It's another thing to find people that truly love it, right? And the ones who truly love it, because we've already heard the stories about the Rams and how early their young guys are getting in and how they're really committed to the process and how they found that in Puka Nakua and how they also foster that by, in a way, pairing their young guys with vets that exhibit the right traits and characteristics. So it kind of permeates throughout the team. This is a team that is very detailed in how they do it. All you have to do is look at the game on Monday night and how they played on defense. Man, the attention to detail and how they all were on the same page. But the competitive energy and edge that they had, that matters. And Sean McVay, because they always talk about teams being a reflection of the coach. When you said details and dog, when I watch him and watch him coach, we all can hear his attention to detail. But when you see his feistiness on the sideline, he is as competitive as they come. And having been around teams that have struggled and have not been able to turn it around, to see them start at 1-4 and turn it around and do it in back-to-back years, man, that reveals the character of the coach. That even when it's bad, I'll find a way to fix it. We'll get it fixed. And
I remember when we talked to Les Snead, or I don't remember if we had him on or if I talked to him on the side, but we had mentioned it before. Because we talked about, gosh, you get these offensive guys, these receivers just up and running, like Cooper Kupp and all the different guys that they've had in there that have they pop right in and then off they go. And he was like, well, yeah, we get smart football players on the offensive side of the ball. They're smart. Puka Nakua, very sharp, smart. Kyron Williams as a running back, listen to him talk. He's freaking smart as crud. You know what I mean? Like they have got a bunch of smart football players on offense. And I'm not saying they're not as smart on defense, but I'm saying attitude maybe a little more at the forefront on defense, and then aptitude maybe a little bit more on offense.
That's a really good observation when we talk about intelligence and those things. And I've kind of told you about this when I was with the Carolina Panthers and we went to Super Bowl 38. When we looked at the Final Four, they were those four teams had the most college graduates on the team. And it doesn't matter, but it kind of speaks to base level of intelligence, goal setting, being able to start something and finish something. And so if you have a smart team comprised of smart players, it just kind of raises the ceiling for the team. And I think the Rams have figured that part out. They know exactly what they are. And so we could talk about alignment. But yeah, Les Snead and Sean McVay are aligned. But man, the details in the dog definitely shows up whenever this team plays.
100%. All right, let's get to the other conference, the AFC. Kansas City, Buck, we've talked about this. Secret weapon for them, I wrote down as continuity. I mean, you've had Patrick Mahomes, who's been in one offensive system his entire career. You've got Steve Spagnuolo, who the league's just hasn't been willing to give another shot as a head coach, so he just keeps coming back year over year. You've got head coach, quarterback, both, and offense, defensive schemes that don't change.
No, so that you grow in it. Yep. When you don't change, you're comfortable. You're able to grow in the system, and growing in the system, you can start to layer and add to it. Also, when you have young guys that jump in there, there's comfort in knowing that every year I know exactly what I'm doing, so I can get better and better, and I can spend less of my time worrying about scheme and more of my time worrying about skill development and those things. And it's not a coincidence that when we talk about the draft and develop model that they've used, it's worked. because they do keep things consistent, and it does allow them to spend a lot of the off season and a lot of the time working on their individual skills.
Yep, no doubt. With Houston, I really thought about them because I was trying to figure out what I would go with there, and I wrote aggressive. And aggressive organizationally, when you look at what they did,
Mhm.
Buck, you trade Deshaun Watson, that's an aggressive move, What
Very.
when you got a young Pro Bowl quarterback, they trade him, that's an aggressive move. They trade all the way back up, I believe, from 12 to 3 to get Will Anderson, right? So they pair up Will
Mhm.
Anderson with CJ Stroud. That was a bold move to go up there and do that. They go out in the offseason. They make a trade for Stephon Diggs. Obviously he ended up getting hurt. Daniil Hunter comes in there. And I think of that from a decision making. And then I also think of just having seen them live and in person, and you've seen them a couple times.
Mhm.
Their aggressive front now, it is an attack front. As Matt Burke that is his baby. Is they are going to get in those wide nines and they are pinning their ears back and they are attacking. So I just wrote aggressive for Houston is the word that stood out to me.
Yeah, and I would say like that aggressiveness comes out because I think you could almost say the same thing about the Texans as you saw about the Rams in terms of the details and the dogs. When I do watch the Texans play and I look at D'Amico Ryans was a really good football player
Mm-hmm.
in the pros, and his team is like that. They are feisty, they're competitive, they don't back down, they don't give an inch, and he always props up his quarterback in C.J. Stroud, but C.J. Stroud also has that aggressiveness in his game when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to pushing it. And you saw it firsthand.
Oh yeah.
Once he got into the rhythm, it was the old CJ that showed up in terms of pushing the ball down the field, fitting it into tight areas, and doing those things. The aggressiveness when harnessed is scary because, man, those guys that go to the line and right beyond the line. But they make you have to kind of have your hands up, your guards up at all times because they will come at you and they'll mow you over if you're not ready to meet them at their level.
Yeah, no, it served him well, and that doesn't come without risk when you play like that and when you build a team like that. But I think they take their shots, which I'm a fan of. Baltimore, I just wrote down identity more than anything else. Like if we go to the combine, if you look at the free agent list, if you're a casual fan of football, you can look at the names and you can look at the players and go, okay, well that's a Raven. The Ravens will like this guy.
Mhm.
Ravens don't really like this guy. Like they have the clearest identity of any team in the NFL.
And I've told you this on multiple occasions. Like I've worked for teams where we always fondly looked at what the Ravens did, and we've always talked about, like, man, they just go and get really good football players. We could talk about the profile and the prototypes and those things, but it always appears that the guys that they would take were the ones that really popped on the tape. And it
Mm-hmm.
goes back to when I was scouting the West and Terrell Suggs was coming out, and he had, I think at the time, the sack record in NCAA was either 44 or 49 sacks, and he ran slow and everybody jumped off the wagon, and there he goes, he falls to the Ravens and he becomes he doesn't become, he's the same player in the
Yeah,
pros that he was in college.
yeah.
And to me, the Ravens have done that because they know exactly who they are. They put them in an environment where you have a bunch of really good players doing what they do really well, and it works. And the example that I would use, because we talked about this dude the entire process, first in the fall, then in the draft season, about how good Kyle Hamilton was and how good Kyle Hamilton was. And he's going to be this and he's going to be that. And then he ran slow and
Mm-hmm.
everybody backed off.
Yep.
But now you look at him in Baltimore at safety, not at the hybrid position they had him at early. They put him back at safety, and all of their defensive woes went away because they understand good football players are continue to play well if you put them in a system that allows them to do what they've always done really well.
And they've always valued some things that the rest of the league doesn't. Off the ball linebackers get paid in Baltimore. Uh,
Yes.
Running backs get paid in Baltimore. Like these, safeties where maybe people, oh, it's a corner league. Well, no,
Yeah.
but that's who they've been, the middle of the field, the spine of the team, like quarterback, center, middle linebacker, defensive
Mm-hmm.
tackle, safety. They've always had those guys. Matt BK gets paid. Like
They always like it's not. It's look. They stay true to who they are, and the funny thing is, like with Ozzie coming over from Cleveland, the things that they talked about in Baltimore were the things that Bill Belichick and those guys talked about in Cleveland and continue to do in New England. It's not a secret. It's not. It's they believe in their approach, and their approach has really served them well.
All right, last team here, Buffalo. I was trying to think of the right analogy. Maybe you have one for me. I've never snow skied in my life. I don't know much about that
Mm.
world, but I do know that the ski lift never stops moving. And I feel like Buffalo that they've retooled their roster, Buck, but they haven't taken a step back. They haven't even paused. They found a way to get better as they've changed a lot of people on this roster.
Mhm.
So I just thought their ability to retool with Bean doing a great job there of just kind of retooling this thing, keeping the core the same. Got your head coach, got your quarterback, swapped out a lot of the other parts, and they're good as they've ever been.
I think they embraced the blue collar identity of themselves and the city. They are a blue collar team. They have a blue collar coach. They understand who they are, and it's reflected in the type of players that they pick. Man, they get a bunch of worker bees, DJ. Like not a lot of flash to them, like high energy, high effort players. And to me, that stems from Sean McDermott and Brandon Bean being on the same page. Sean McDermott, former wrestler, guy kind of appreciates the grittiness of it all. That's how that team is. And let's be honest, when you put them around a next level quarterback, a superstar quarterback, he helps because would it work without Josh Allen as the centerpiece? I don't know, but the ski lift works when you got that mountain of a man at quarterback.
Yeah, that's a fact. All right, but before we take a break, I'm not going to ask you to answer this question, but I'm going to ask you to think about it. I'm going to ask if you're listening or watching to think about it. Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, C.J. Stroud, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. You got to pick in the top 5 in this draft class, this current draft class. Do you think there's one of those dudes is ready to go to war with those 8 dudes? I'm not going
No,
to ask you. I'm not. There you go. You answered it. I wasn't going to put you on the spot,
no,
but it
no.
frames it,
But
doesn't it? Frame it.
but and so here's where like I don't want to say I get mad, but I think people always have to understand like there's an ideal and a standard that's out there and that
Mm-hmm.
you're always grading to that standard. And it's not a year to year standard where we drop say, oh, well, I'm gonna put a first round grade on them this year. No, you're always working towards that standard and working for teams. DJ, if you don't build your team, particularly in the AFC, to deal
Yeah.
with those quarterbacks, you don't have a chance
No.
because those are the guys that you're going to have to see to eventually get to the championship round. And so you better make sure that your quarterback can live up to that.
Here's the $1 billion question for teams picking in the top 5 this year. You have to have an honest and open discussion about the quarterback you're going to take in the top 5. Is he close to these 8 quarterbacks that are still playing in the playoffs, or is he closer to the quarterbacks that are going to be available to you in the second, third, fourth round of this draft? That's going to inform your decision because if he's closer to those guys you can get
Mhm.
later in the draft, then Abdul Carter, um, Hunter,
Bet,
all those
bet.
dudes, come on down. I'm going to take a big time dude, and we're going to build up the rest of the team, and we'll take a flyer on one of these guys in second, third, fourth round.
Well, I mean, look and look. If you're gonna do that, you do it. I think it's not even that, DJ. I think it comes down to the conversation that we would typically have in draft rooms. Okay, throw those guys out that are remaining in the tournament. Let's use Sam Darnold. All
Yeah.
right, Sam Darnold versus whoever you want to put in this class. That's the conversation that you have to have because Sam Darnold will be the top free agent on the
Mm-hmm.
market. The guys that we're drafting, are they better talents than Sam Darnold? Because if they're not, it tells you everything that you need to know about where you picked them and how you select them.
Yep. And you also, if you're a team that gets Sam Darnold and you're one of those teams picking up there, now I've got the quarterback and now I've got the freedom and the luxury. I don't think there's going to be a market to trade these picks. I don't think you're going to be able to, but I'll tell you what you can do. Abdul Carter is a bad man. Travis Hunter is a bad man. Like you can get a
You can't go, you
stud
can't
impact player.
you can't go wrong drafting good players.
Yeah. So,
That's what I
anyways, it's time for Hot or Not, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Buck, we will get to what we're thinking about these games here in a minute. But in terms of hot, it's hot off the press just with some of the changes we've seen here. Coaching hires, Mike Vrabel gets hired. The Cowboys interviewing a lot of people. Dion's out there, looming out there. They're going to bring in Kellen Moore to talk to him. Robert Saleh has been making the rounds. We've got the Bears with Mike McCarthy being a name connected to them. You know what? I'm going through this list of candidates, and if I was going to give you, if you were going to say one guy you guarantee he's going to get a job in this cycle? Is there one player you guarantee he's going to get a job? Because I've got mine. I'm going to write it down. I just wonder if we're on the same page, because a lot of times we kind of see this the same. So
Wait a
hold
minute. So
on. I'll write this.
you're asking me to guarantee which coach is going to get hired this cycle outside of
This coach, if I was going to say when all these seats get filled, that this would be your pick of one that you feel the most confident is going to get one of these jobs.
Well, do we keep Ben Johnson on the table, or do we take Ben Johnson
You
off
can
the table?
no,
I'm
you can take him off the table, but I don't know for sure that he's gonna. I mean, I think Vegas is a legit thing with him. I think they could just throw him so much, money, and maybe it's power or control. I don't know, but I think Vegas is a legit option there. I'm sure Chicago, would hire him in a heartbeat. But I just still get the vibe. I don't know that he's found the
I think
perfect spot, and there's still a
I
chance
think
he could stay where he is. So let's just take him
I
off, though.
okay. I was gonna say, because I don't think there's any chance that he's coming back to Detroit as a coordinator.
Okay.
I think he's a
Okay.
head coach ready to go. Who else is off the board? Because once you take Vrabel off the board and once you take Ben Johnson, now it becomes a little murky. I'm gonna say Aaron Glenn gets a job, and the reason Aaron Glenn, oh, look at you. The
So I knew
reason
we'd be on
why.
the same page, man.
Well, the reason why, there are a couple of things that Aaron Glenn has working in his favor. I think he has tentacles on 3 teams that are looking for coaches: the Jets, the Jags, the Saints.
Yep.
So there's a level of knowledge of who the person is coming in the building. 2, I don't know if you've seen the thing, but he was on the pivot talking about all the different things that he's done. DJ, he went from being a scouting assistant to being a coaching assistant to doing all the other things. So he
No
understands
shortcuts.
all of the process. And so he doesn't come in as someone who's entitled, who skipped the process, jumped the line to get where he is. And I'll say this: I've seen Aaron Glenn become a better coach over the last few years as a coordinator. And even though there's no direct correlation between being a good coordinator and a head coach, the growth that he has made in the 3 or 4 years that he's been in that role suggests to me that he has the right mindset to be a good coach. Good coaches are always looking for the advantage to get better. Aaron Glenn has showed as a defensive coordinator, he is willing to adapt, adjust, grow as a coach. That gives me a reason to believe that he would do the same thing as a head coach.
Yeah, I just think he has instant credibility. I think he's got a presence every time I've seen him speak, and I don't know him. I know you know him better than I do, but I think he's got it. And sometimes it's hard to describe it. You just know it when you see it. And I know who he's been around. I know what
Bill Parcells tree. Yeah.
Yeah, philosophically, that's a toughness, details. That's a impose your will, like all those things he believes in, I believe in. So, and I just think with his background as a player, even Buck, this is I don't know, this kind of stuff gets you in trouble when you say this. So I'm just be careful, but just the way that he presents and takes care of himself says something to me. And you know what that says to me? It says
Being in shape.
discipline.
Being
Yes.
in shape.
I
Discipline.
know we're not. I mean, I guess that's frowned upon, but I'm telling you, that's in the back of your head when you
No.
see him. Like, this guy's got his ducks in a row. He takes care of himself.
Yeah, it takes care of himself. The way you see him interact, the way that he presents, and a lot of times, and I know we kind of reached a point where it's really hard to have these frank conversations that we used to have in scouting rooms. But DJ, we used to talk about the way that people would present and how you had to have a presidential feel about the person in the front room. There had to be a regalness about how they did it. Like it's about having your ducks in a row and I's dotted, T's crossed. So when you say and you carry the message not only to the team, but can you carry the message when you stand in front of the podium and clearly articulate what it is that we're expecting, the vision and all of those things. And so when you take that and the player thing, like I always can respect, because Aaron and I were in the same draft class. We're buddies and those things. But to watch him grow, I think the level of humility that he's shown on his coaching journey leads me to believe that will also come out as a head coach. It's one thing to be the problem solver, but it's another thing to walk in like you're the know-it-all. I think he has enough of that confidence where you buy into him, but he has enough humility to go and get the answers for what he doesn't know.
Yeah, I think hungry, humble, and smart, right? We always come back to that. He seems like he checks all three of those boxes. And look, before anybody says something, I know there's been fit coaches who've been failures, and there have been heavy coaches in the Hall of Fame, short coaches, tall coaches. I'm just saying, if you're a human being, that
Well,
gets
not
it. Maybe it's even subconsciously, but it stands
there,
out.
there is something to the saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so what
Yeah,
you're looking for are those who have habits. And
yeah.
if they have championship habits in their personal life, they're likely to have championship habits in their professional life.
Yeah, so there you go. That's all I was getting to. We'll see what happens to some of these other openings, and when they get filled, we'll break them down here. So look, we're just getting started here with this off season. Anything else you want to add on these coaches, Buck?
Well, no, like you finished the thing with the hot and out. I do want to ask you about your take on Mike Vrabel stepping in New
Yeah,
England, because I think it's fascinating that they didn't like the previous program under Bill Belichick to only have to come back to the program that basically Bill Belichick runs with a little spin on it.
yeah. No, that's why I said that's when we talked about this previously before he got hired. It reminded me of your Tar Heels, of going to
Yes, yeah, we're
bringing
gonna
Roy
go
Williams home.
Roy Williams, and yeah, we're gonna
Yeah,
go back. Like it's time to come home. It is
yeah.
it is funny how that is, but yeah, there's a certain way that I believe this. There's a certain way that all organizations have to conduct their business for them to win. There's a blueprint for everybody. You have to be able to stick to the blueprint.
Yeah, and he is. Nobody wonders about Mike Vrabel, who he is. I did see RC's going over there. I ain't counting.
Yeah, I
Uh,
did, but I didn't see the role, and I'm curious to see like
I
how
mean, him
they
and Elliott, like we're all of that same, kind of
ilk. Yeah.
generation. So I know him and Elliott have known, and Zoe, Alonzo, everybody's known
Hmm.
Zoe. I'm sure RC has a good relationship with Zoe as well. So I think
Yeah,
some
no,
people looked at that and thought, "Oh gosh, how is this going to work?" Vrabel's bringing in his own personnel guy. I'm like, everybody. This is a small league, man. Everybody knows everybody.
yeah, everybody knows everybody, and ultimately, man, like there is a level of collaboration that you want to have. And I'll say this, man, I think it's hard for a collection of smart people to screw things up. Hopefully, what you're doing is you're bringing in another smart person to the room that allows you to have um, high level discussions. And even if there's some disagreement, what it does is it fosters a thorough vetting of whatever the process is before you make decisions.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, there you go. That was this week's Hot or Not segment, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Store more and do more with your data. Try them for free at wasabi.com. All right, Buck, let's go through these games here. Let's start first of all, Houston and Kansas City. So far, one of the takeaways for me in this playoffs has been rust hadn't really been an issue. These teams that sat guys or that rested, I know they didn't have the buys, but some teams basically took a bye the
Mhm.
last week of the season. Didn't seem to bother them. Now the Chiefs, that is a prolonged wait here for them to get ready for this one. But Houston going in there, how do you see it? Do you see them having a shot at this thing? And what do you expect with the Chiefs with all this rest?
They absolutely have a shot. They have a shot because they're good enough to qualify to get to this round. They have a shot because they have enough talent on offense and defense to do it. I think their path to victory is a slim one. They have to be able to control the game. I think Joe Mixon is the big part of that. They need to be able to run the football and limit the opportunities that Kansas City has. And then defensively, they have to find a way to get Patrick Mahomes on the ground. There's one thing to say pass rush. It's another thing to get him on the ground because he's so slippery. In the end, though, to me, this is all about Kansas City and Kansas City being able to do what they typically do. This is not the explosive version of the Kansas City Chiefs, but this is a team that knows how to win. Pat Mahomes, 12-2 at home during the playoffs. Andy Reid during the regular season, 21-4, coming off a bye. He has a formula and a system to allow his players to play really well when they've had a little time. And Travis Kelce said this, and this to me is the deciding factor. Travis Kelce said, great players have to step it up in the playoffs. These guys are well aware of what is needed to be a championship team. You don't win 3 in 5 years and go to a fourth without knowing it. To me, that's the difference. I love what the Texans have done, but Kansas City knows what they're doing when they get to this point.
Yeah, I for the Texans, it's pretty simple to me. For them to have a chance in this game, two things need to happen. They need to take the football away, which they play aggressive man coverage, and that can with their pass rush, they've been able to generate some turnovers, and we saw a boatload of them last week against the Chargers. So, can their defense create turnovers? Number one, and number two, you got to figure out a way to block Chris Jones because there's some matchups that are pretty favorable for Chris Jones along that front. An offensive line that's had some issues. So we always use this, this kind of thought or analogy. There is, hey, 4-1, man. You better have 4 hands on his chest. So you better have him doubled at all times and take your chances with everybody else. But don't get hit with the right hand, man. Don't let Chris Jones bury you in this game.
Man, we see it so much. Don't get hit with the right hand. At least have the guard or make them throw another punch. But don't let them knock you out with the right hand that you know inevitably is going to come.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get to Commanders-Lions, the second game on Saturday. What are you looking for?
This is interesting. I want to know how the Lions perform being the favorite. They have been the football world's darling because they are kind of like the little train that could, the little engine that could. Like they made it to the top and those things. When you're the number 1 seed, it's a different level of pressure because the expectations that the Lions are going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. How do they handle the pressure of that moment? And I think Washington is uniquely qualified to be able to knock them off. 1, they have a superstar quarterback. 2, they have a number of defenders that have championship level experience. And if the game is tight, they understand what is required. I need to see if the Lions can be as free-willing as they have been throughout the regular season in the postgame with huge consequences if it doesn't go the right way. Do they become more conservative or do they continue to put their foot on the gas because that is the way that they've gotten to this point?
I was just looking it up. I was curious about it. That I believe that Washington's only lost 1 game indoors this year. I was thinking about just from Jaden Daniels' standpoint of how fast he is in having a perfect conditions, perfect track could benefit him. So I'm keeping an eye on that. I think Jaden Daniels he might have to run for 100 in this because I look, Detroit's going to score, so you're going to have to unleash every weapon you got in this thing.
Yeah, you have to go for it. And Dan Quinn recognized the moment last week when he was more aggressive on 4th down because he knew that they wouldn't be able to consistently stop the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It worked out in their favor. The Lions team that is high-powered, you have to be willing to go for it. But as we said, playing with house money, the freedom that the Commanders have in this game, man, it's a lot different when you can take your shot and you don't feel the weight of responsibility to have to win. That falls on the shoulders of the Lions. And so that's why the conservativeness, the conservative nature of the play calls on both sides, that's what I'm looking to see. Do the Lions change their blueprint now that we're in the stuff that matters?
Yeah, and also human nature, and we talked about Aaron Glenn earlier in the show, but when you've got both coordinators who've got a lot of opportunities and a lot of attention.
Some distractions. There's some distractions. I don't care what anyone says. It is hard to stay locked in on that. It's hard not to think about the next opportunity, even though you've worked so hard to get here. It's human nature. Can you stay locked in and focused? Can you compartmentalize what is going on to be able to give the Lions the best version of yourself?
Rams, Eagles, Buck.
Man, and look, DJ, I know the Eagles were okay and they may have wanted the Rams to come, but I'm going to say this, man, in the playoffs, quarterback play is everything. And the one quarterback that I don't know if you necessarily want to face is Matthew Stafford. Going all the way back to his time in Detroit. This dude has a knack for delivering in the biggest moments. You look at his history, game-winning drives, 4th quarter comebacks. He's there. This is a major stage, and let's be honest, like some of the mojo and energy that they played with against the Vikings, that'll carry on. They're not as talented as the Eagles, but if the Eagles mess around and allow the Rams to hang around, the Rams can do it. And I say that full well knowing that the Eagles smacked them around the first time they faced this season.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Rams Super Bowl year. They were Arizona at home indoors, at Tampa, not going to deal with much there weather-wise, at home against San Francisco, and a Super Bowl at home against Cincinnati. It's just a different environment when you're going to Philadelphia. It's going to be butt cold.
I think it's going to be snow.
That's a little different. It's a little different. And I just think with Saquon and that offensive line, we saw it. They squared off earlier, and the Eagles ran the ball down their throats at SoFi.
And they're going to look to do it again. Unless they get distracted. If they commit to running the ball and they play the physical brand of football that they have started to embrace and play, it's going to be a hard one for the Rams. To me, the thing that holds the Eagles back would only be the emotional maturity. Are they
Yeah.
mature enough to take care of business? That's the big thing. Like, can they worry about just winning the game and not about, hey, my numbers, my touches, and those things? If they do that, then they should be able to win.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting game, but it's not gonna be as fun to watch as this next one. The last one is the heavyweight matchup. It is the Bills and the Ravens, and I can't think of a playoff game that wasn't even a conference championship game that I've looked forward to more than this one.
Man, it is such a great game. And I'm going to say this, DJ, it goes all the way back to 2018 in the draft, because I feel like both of those guys during the draft process didn't get their due in
Mhm.
terms of what they could be. We didn't have the imagination in the league to be able to really appreciate what they were, because they were both, in a way, non-traditional quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson more so than Josh Allen, but Josh Allen didn't have the completion rate that you normally desire in a top pick. Josh Allen ran around, but he didn't run around to the level that Lamar Jackson was running around.
Mhm.
And to see them now become top 5 quarterbacks in this league, where it's unquestioned that they're elite, to see them square off, to me, is fascinating. On the Baltimore side, I just want to see if the Ravens are going to be the Ravens. I felt like last year in the AFC Championship game, they got away from the blueprint that really worked for them. But if they play to their strengths and just do what they've done, run the football, do some of that stuff, and don't get distracted by trying to prove to people they can play a different style, they're better than the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen is a superhero, and we have seen him put this offense and this team on the back. And in these gotta have it moments that we talked about, third down, red zone, 2-minute end of half, he is going to make a play with his legs if he has to. Can the Baltimore Ravens get him down? Because he is a more athletic version of the Ben Roethlisberger that they used to face. And you would talk about tackling and being able to get him down. The key is, can they get number 17 on the ground?
Yeah, well, it's gonna be such a fun game, man. I don't know where that game's gonna go. If you told me that either one of those teams blew the other team out, I don't know that I'd be shocked because they're both capable. If you told me this was a overtime thriller, I could see that happen. It could be a high scoring game. It could be a low score. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen in this. So that's why it's so intriguing to me, man. But there might be the two most fun quarterbacks to watch in the NFL, and they're going to be going at it, throwing haymakers. It's going to be fun.
DJ, there have only been 3 quarterbacks in NFL history that have scored 40 plus touchdowns, rushed for more than 500 yards, and had fewer than 7 interceptions. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson twice.
Yeah,
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson this year, and then Lamar Jackson back in 2019. Like,
yeah,
think about that. That is ridiculous what they've been able to do in the National Football League. These dudes are special. They're unicorns. And I am just glad that we will have an opportunity. We won't fully give either one of those guys their flowers, but we'll have an opportunity to see what could be when you take a chance on guys that have elite traits, even though their games may be a little unorthodox.
yeah. Think about the 3 of the 4 teams that are remaining in the AFC are Andy Reid. You know, Andy
Mm-hmm.
Reid and 2 of his disciples, and Harbaugh and McDermott going at it in this game. So there's familiarity of how they want to play, who they are as people, what they want to do. These guys have had longevity in their stops, so it's going to be a great game, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to hit you up for a winner on these, Buck. I've already posted mine on there. I ended up with
Okay.
Chiefs. I ended up with Chiefs, Lions, Eagles, Bills. So I ended up going home team straight down the line.
The only change that we have is I had the Ravens over the Buffalo Bills. Everything
And I can
else
see that.
is
Yeah.
status quo. To me, DJ, the Ravens over the Bills, it literally comes down to, if the Ravens play, if they play to their identity, they have more talent. And so because they have more talent, they have the opportunity to score more. This might be the game in my mind where Buffalo feels the lack of an elite playmaker on the
Mhm.
perimeter. That's the only reason why I would give the Ravens not. I don't think it's going to be the blowout that we saw earlier. This is going to be a fourth quarter affair, and one of those quarterbacks, they have to make a play to win it.
Yeah, and man, it's hard to believe that this league allowed Derrick Henry to team up with Lamar Jackson, and they.
Is that
Whew,
I mean, like, of all the things, and like, let's just say this: the Ravens do not mind taking. I know the Titans aren't the rival that they once were. Well, they
yeah,
sure don't mind stealing people from their rivals, though. Like, they sure don't. I mean, if you're gonna let them go, they say, "Hey, we'll take them."
I just think about the Kansas City Chiefs and some of the wars they've had in the playoffs, and in games against Derrick Henry and the Titans, and they've had wars against the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and both of those teams struggled to take down the Chiefs, and it's almost like, hey, let's team up, man. Let's join up. Let's join forces and see if together we can't topple this juggernaut in Kansas City. So they got to get through Buffalo first, though, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be tough, but it's gonna be a great one to see, and I can't wait for us to talk about it when we come back.
Yep, looking forward to it. All right, this is a beefy episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It really is the best time of the year. Cannot wait for these ball games. We will have all the reaction. That'll be coming your way next week as we continue to break down what's happening in the coaching side of things as well, and start dipping our toe in the draft waters as well. So hope you guys enjoy this one. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.